They say a 911 call is the sound of desperation, an instant where fear, pain, or death itself collides with the calm voice of a dispatcher. But sometimes, a 911 call isn't just a plea for help. Sometimes, it's a message from somewhere far darker. Tonight, I want you to sit back, dim the lights, and let your breath slow, because you're about to hear stories of 911 calls that never should have existed. Calls that came from abandoned houses, calls from highways that had no phones, calls from voices that shouldn't have been able to speak. By the end, you may wonder, if you dialed 911 right now, who, or what, would be on the other end? Story 1, the abandoned house call. It began like any other night inside the county's 911 dispatch center. Phones ringing, the low murmur of operators, the constant clicking of keyboards. But then, just after midnight, a call came through that would change everything. The dispatcher, a woman named Claire, had been working nights for 12 years. She was used to false alarms, accidental dials, even the occasional prank. But the moment she answered this call, she felt her pulse quicken. 911, what's your emergency? She said calmly, her headset snug around her ears. At first, there was silence, a crackle of static, like a bad radio frequency. Claire frowned, glancing at the screen in front of her. The call wasn't coming from a cell tower. It was listed as a landline registered to a house on Maplewood Drive. And that was odd. Everyone in the department knew Maplewood Drive. At the very end of it sat an old property, long abandoned, windows boarded, weeds climbing its porch like skeletal hands. Teenagers dared each other to break in, but nobody lived there. Nobody had for at least 40 years. Hello, Claire tried again. This is 911. Do you need help? Then, faintly, she heard it. A whisper, so quiet she almost thought she imagined it. The voice of a man, low, broken, muttering something she couldn't catch. Claire adjusted her headset. Sir, I need you to speak up. Are you in danger? More static. And then a clear sentence, whispered like a secret. They won't stop. They won't stop coming through the walls. Claire sat up straight. Her eyes darted to her supervisor across the room, but she didn't signal yet. She needed more. Sir, who's coming through the walls? A long pause. Then, the man let out a trembling laugh. They already know you're listening. The line went dead. Claire's heart hammered in her chest. She quickly typed notes into the system. Male caller. Distressed. Possible hallucination. Address, 122, Maplewood Drive. 2 deputies were dispatched immediately. Officer Daniels and Officer Ruiz knew the property well. They drove the 10 minutes out, their patrol car headlights slicing through the dark woods until the silhouette of the house appeared, an angular corpse of wood and stone against the night sky. The house was notorious. Built in the 1920s, it had belonged to the Holloway family. According to town lore, the father had gone mad one winter and vanished. The mother and children were later found dead inside, their bodies strangely arranged in a circle in the living room. Nobody ever bought the property after that. It was left to rot, a scar on Maplewood Drive. When the deputies arrived, the first thing they noticed was the front door. It was slightly open. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. We're at the location. Door appears ajar. Proceeding with caution. Claire's voice crackled back through their radios. Copy that. Be advised, the caller sounded unstable. Use caution. The 2 deputies drew their flashlights and stepped inside. Dust swirled in the beam of light. The air smelled of mildew and decay. Every step on the warped wooden floor echoed too loudly, like the house was listening. Police. Ruiz called out. If someone's in here, call out. No answer. They cleared the kitchen, the dining room, the long hallway. Everything was covered in dust. Cobwebs hung like curtains. Yet something felt disturbed. On the kitchen counter, Ruiz noticed a coffee mug. Not old, not dusty. A mug that looked like it had been set there recently. Daniels whispered, did the kids break in again? But Ruiz shook his head. This doesn't feel like a prank. Upstairs, the feeling only grew stronger. The deputies split off, carefully opening each door. Empty bedrooms, broken furniture, stains on the walls that might have been water damage, or something else. Finally, they reached the master bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was shut. Daniels turned the knob slowly, pushing it open. And there, sitting on the floor in the middle of the room, was a rotary phone. Not plugged into anything. Not connected to the wall, just sitting there. And the phone's receiver was slightly lifted off the cradle. The 2 men froze. Dispatch, Daniels whispered into his radio, there's a phone here. Old rotary model. It's not connected, but, before he could finish, the phone rang. Both men jumped back, their hearts pounding. The shrill ring echoed unnaturally loud in the empty house. Daniels reached out, hesitated, then picked it up. Static hissed through the receiver. And then, that same whisper Claire had heard. "They already know you're listening." Daniels slammed the phone down. His hands were trembling. Ruiz muttered, "What the hell is going on here?" They searched the rest of the house, but found no one. No footprints in the dust. No signs of forced entry. Nothing that suggested anyone had been there at all. But back at the station, Claire swore she hadn't imagined the call. She replayed the audio recording over and over. Each time, she could hear the man's words, but in the background, there was something else. Faint, almost imperceptible. Children laughing. The recording was sent for analysis, but no interference could explain it. The call log showed it had originated from 122, Maplewood Drive. Yet the phone lines to the property had been disconnected decades ago. Word spread quickly. Some of the younger officers refused to go near the house again. Old-timers muttered that the Holloway family had never really left, that maybe the father's madness had left a scar that echoed forever in the walls. Claire couldn't stop thinking about that whisper. They won't stop coming through the walls. For weeks, she dreamed of that house. In her sleep, she heard the ringing of the rotary phone, always just before waking in a cold sweat. Months later, the county ordered the house demolished. On the day the bulldozers arrived, Claire drove by. She watched as the machines tore into the rotting structure. And just as the first wall came down, something strange happened. The workers stopped. The foreman shouted. Dust clouded the air, and when it cleared, everyone could see what they had uncovered. Behind the walls of the master bedroom, inside the very plaster and wood, were dozens of small handprints. Children's handprints, pressed into the inside of the walls, as though little hands had been reaching out from within. The site was closed immediately. Officials gave no statement, and the land remains empty to this day. But the recording of that 911 call still exists. Dispatchers who listen to it say the whisper always comes through the same way, chilling and certain. They already know you're listening. But Maplewood Drive isn't the only place where phones ring without explanation. Sometimes, the call comes from the road itself, a stretch of highway where no one should be dialing at all. Story 2, the highway payphone call. It was the summer of 1998 when Officer Michael Hart first heard about the Highway 46 payphone. By then, the payphone was already a legend among the locals. Truckers swore they'd seen it glowing on nights when it shouldn't even have had power. Teenagers dared each other to answer it. And somewhere along the line, people whispered that if you ever picked up the receiver, you'd never sleep the same again. But on the night of August 12th, Officer Hart didn't believe in legends. He believed in facts, reports, and long shifts of paperwork. That's why when a 911 call came through dispatch, claiming someone had phoned in from the abandoned payphone on the side of Highway 46, he figured it was just a glitch in the system. Caller location reads, Highway 46 payphone, the dispatcher announced through the radio. Hart frowned. That phone had been disconnected years ago. He knew because he'd passed it countless times, a rusting, graffiti-covered box bolted into the concrete, wires dangling uselessly. It was nothing more than a landmark on a forgotten stretch of road. Still, protocol demanded he check it out. He sighed, grabbed his flashlight, and drove his cruiser down the near-empty highway. The night was humid, the kind that stuck to your skin. The only light came from his headlights and the occasional flicker of distant neon signs advertising diners and gas stations. After 10 minutes, the payphone appeared on the shoulder like some lone sentinel. And here was the first strange thing. The light above the payphone was on. Hart slowed, parking just behind it. He killed the engine, listening. The highway was quiet, only the occasional rush of a passing semi in the distance. He stepped out, boots crunching against gravel. The payphone stood there, humming faintly. Not the hum of electricity. More like a low vibration, something deep inside the metal box. Hart lifted his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I've got visual on the Highway 46 payphone. Light is operational. That possible. Static crackle. Then the dispatcher answered. Unit 7, negative. Phone's been disconnected since '93. Power company has no service listed there. Hart squinted. If there was no power, how was the bulb glowing a pale, sickly yellow? And then, the phone rang. The sound shattered the silence of the highway, sharp and unnatural. Hart jumped, nearly fumbling his flashlight. He stared at the receiver. The ringing was old-fashioned, mechanical, echoing too loudly against the night. Against his better judgment, Hart reached out. His hand trembled slightly as he lifted the receiver to his ear. At first, there was nothing but static. Then, a voice. Low, male. Almost a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." Hart froze. "This is Officer Hart with County Police. Identify yourself." The line hissed. Then the voice spoke again, this time more urgent. "They're already behind you." Hart spun, flashlight beam cutting across the empty highway. Nothing. Just endless road stretching into darkness. When he turned back, the phone line had gone dead. His pulse was hammering now, sweat trickled down his temple. He dropped the receiver, letting it dangle and sway. Something felt wrong, like he was being watched. Hart forced himself to search the immediate area, sweeping his light across the brush and gravel. He found nothing unusual, no footprints, no tire marks, no sign of anyone. But when he returned to the phone, he noticed something that made his stomach lurch. The receiver was back on the hook. He hadn't put it there. "Dispatch," he muttered, voice unsteady, no sign of caller. "Area appears clear." Returning to patrol. But as he turned back toward his cruiser, the payphone rang again. This time, he didn't answer. He got in the car, locked the doors, and drove. The call was logged, of course, and for weeks afterward, Hart tried to rationalize it. A prank, faulty wiring, maybe even hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But then it happened again. And again. Other officers began reporting the same thing. Each time, the call logs traced back to the disconnected payphone. And each time, the voice on the other end delivered a different message. "Don't take the next exit. Look in your rearview mirror. She's not alone in the back seat." Each officer swore they were alone, and yet the warnings made their skin crawl. Some stopped responding to calls near Highway 46 altogether. The strangest incident came 6 months later. A truck driver named Alan McCoy pulled into the station, pale and trembling. He told officers he'd broken down on Highway 46 late at night. As he was checking under the hood, the payphone started ringing. Against his better judgment, he answered. And the voice said, "Don't turn around. They'll know you can see them." McCoy claimed he froze in place, staring straight ahead, heart pounding. He said he felt something, standing just behind him, close enough that he could hear its breathing. But he didn't turn. He climbed back into his cab and stayed there until another trucker stopped at dawn to help him. When officers inspected the scene, the payphone was dark, completely dead. No power, no dial tone. Hart never forgot his first night with the phone. Over the years, he grew obsessed, researching the area's history. What he found disturbed him. Back in the 1960s, a Greyhound bus had broken down near that very spot. Passengers waited for hours before the driver decided to walk to the nearest town for help. By the time he returned, every passenger was gone. Their luggage was still on the bus, their food untouched. The only clue was the payphone, which at the time had been newly installed. Witnesses swore it rang all night long. None of the passengers were ever found. Hart dug deeper, finding older accounts of strange disappearances near that stretch of road. Folklore spoke of the Watchers, figures said to drift along the highway's edge, unseen until you acknowledged them. Maybe the phone was their way of luring people, or maybe it was a warning, one final chance to escape before they appeared. No one could say for sure. Today, the payphone is gone. The county removed it after too many complaints, too many unexplained calls. The metal post is still there, rusting in the weeds, a scar on the roadside. But some nights, drivers say if you slow down near mile marker 221, you can still hear it. That old, mechanical ring, echoing faintly through the dark. And if you ever stop, if you ever hear the receiver lift, remember the voice that spoke to Officer Hart that summer night. They're already behind you. Story 3, the Phantom 911 operator. On the night of November 3, 2006, the Lakeside County 911 Dispatch Center in Michigan was quiet. It was a Friday, cold and damp, the kind of night where nothing much happens outside of the occasional bar fight or deer collision. Dispatcher Rachel Turner was on duty. She'd been working there for 5 years, and though she was used to the usual chaos, panicked callers, dropped signals, bad directions, what happened that night would haunt her for the rest of her life. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the red line on her console lit up. This was the emergency line. She tapped the headset. "911, what's your emergency?" she asked. Silence. She frowned. Sometimes prank calls came through, or drunk dials. She repeated, "This is 911. Do you require assistance?" And then, a voice. Not frantic, not scared. Calm, almost mechanical. "Help them." Rachel sat up straight. "Excuse me. Help who? The line hissed softly. Then the voice repeated, help them. Highway 9, mile marker 14. Rachel immediately started typing. She flagged the call, logging the time and location. Can you identify yourself? But the line went dead. She sat back, unsettled. The voice hadn't sounded like a normal caller. It had been flat, emotionless, like an old recording. But the location was specific, and protocol demanded she treat it as legitimate. She radioed it in. Within minutes, deputies were dispatched to the stretch of Highway 9. They found a car. A red sedan had veered off the road into a ditch, nearly invisible in the dark. Inside, a family of 3 was trapped. The parents were unconscious. The young daughter was barely breathing. If they'd stayed there until morning, they wouldn't have survived the cold. But thanks to the mysterious call, the deputies were able to save all 3. Rachel filed the report, but something nagged at her. When she pulled the phone log later, she saw something she couldn't explain. The call had no origin, no number, no signal, no tower data, just a blank space. It was as if the call had come from nowhere. For the next month, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about it. She asked around the center, wondering if anyone else had received similar calls. At first, her co-workers laughed it off, but then one night, another dispatcher admitted something. She too had once received a strange call. Years earlier. Same thing. Flat voice, no origin, a specific location. That call had led police to an elderly man who'd suffered a heart attack in his backyard. The man had survived thanks to the timely response. But like Rachel's case, the call had never been traced. The rumors started swirling. Dispatchers whispered about a phantom operator, a ghostly voice that appeared only when lives were on the line. Some said it was the spirit of a former dispatcher who died years ago, still trying to save people. Others thought it was something else entirely, something watching, waiting, stepping in only when the stakes were life or death. Rachel wanted to believe it was a guardian of some kind, but the truth was more complicated. 3 weeks later, she got another call. It was late, nearly 3 a.m., when the red line lit up again. She answered. 911, what's your emergency? The same flat voice. Help them. Water Street. The bridge. Rachel stiffened. She typed quickly, relaying the message to patrol cars. Again, she asked, who is this? But the line had already gone dead. Deputies rushed to Water Street Bridge, and sure enough, a pickup truck was found smashed against the guardrail, teetering dangerously close to the edge. Inside, a teenage boy was trapped. He was pulled out just minutes before the truck slipped into the river below. Once again, the mysterious call had saved a life. But when Rachel checked the logs, the call didn't exist. No number, no recording, nothing. It was as if she'd imagined the entire thing. Except the boy's life had been saved. Over the next year, the calls continued. Always the same voice. Always the same pattern. Help them. Go now. Check the woods. Every time, someone was found in desperate need. A hiker lost in the forest. A man collapsed in his driveway. A car wreck hidden in the snow. And every time, the call logs showed nothing. Rachel became obsessed. She spent hours listening to static recordings, poring over equipment reports, even contacting telecom experts. No one could explain it. The system wasn't capable of producing phantom calls. Yet they kept coming. Then came the night that changed everything. It was December 14, 2007. Snow was falling heavily. Rachel was alone in the dispatch center when the red line lit up again. She braced herself. Slowly, she answered. 911, what's your emergency? The flat voice replied, help them. Miller Road. The barn. Rachel began typing when she froze. Because this time, the voice added something new. Hurry, Rachel. Her blood ran cold. It had said her name. She looked around the dispatch center, heart pounding. The room was empty, just the hum of monitors and the blinking lights. She swallowed, forcing herself to finish relaying the location. Deputies were sent to Miller Road. What they found was a family trapped in a burning barn. They were saved, just barely, thanks to the call. But Rachel couldn't shake the fact that the voice had addressed her directly. Whoever, or whatever, it was, it knew who she was. After that night, the calls became more personal. Help them, Rachel. You're the only one who can. Answer quickly, Rachel. They're waiting, Rachel. Her co-workers never heard the voice themselves. The calls only ever came through her headset. Some of them joked that she was chosen. Others worried she was cracking under the stress. But Rachel knew the truth. The voice wasn't random. It had attached itself to her. And then came the final call. It was 2 a.m. on a bitter January night. The red line lit up. Rachel hesitated, hand trembling as she answered. 911, what's your emergency? The voice was different this time. Still flat, but colder. Help them. Lakeside Road. Mile marker 7. Rachel typed automatically, dispatching units. Then the voice added, this is the last time. Her throat went dry. What do you mean, the last time? Silence. Then, softly, they will call you next. The line went dead. Deputies later found a car accident at the exact spot. A young woman survived thanks to the call, but Rachel was left shaken. What did it mean, they will call you next? 4 weeks afterward, she waited. She barely slept, barely ate, jumping every time the red line lit up. But the phantom voice never returned. Some say it moved on. Some say it only appears once a generation, attaching itself to a chosen dispatcher until its work is done. Rachel eventually quit her job, unable to bear the silence of waiting. But she still wonders, late at night, if one day her phone will ring again. Not the dispatch console. Not her cell phone. Just a ring, sharp and mechanical, from nowhere. And when she answers, she wonders if the voice will finally tell her who's been calling all along. So whether it's a forgotten street corner, a lonely highway, or even the dispatch center itself, one thing is certain, when a phone rings without a caller, the voice on the other end may not just be a warning, it may be something else entirely. You've just heard 3 911 calls that should never have existed. Calls from abandoned houses, from broken payphones, from numbers that belong to the dead. So tonight, before you close your eyes, remember, when a phone rings in the dark, it might not be calling for help. It might be calling for you.